Hey guys, tonight we dive into the kind of stories that make you question every creak in the floorboards and every shadow on your wall. The air feels heavier right now, doesn't it? Maybe it's because you're about to step into a world where nothing is quite as it seems. You probably won't survive this. Not emotionally, anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Let me know who's listening from under their blanket fort at 3 a.m., clutching their phone like a lifeline. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The call begins with an old rotary phone sitting silently on its cradle. It's late, too late, and the house is quiet except for the occasional groan of settling wood. You weren't expecting anyone to call, not at this hour, but then it rings. A shrill, jarring sound cuts through the stillness, making your heart skip a beat. You hesitate, staring at the phone as though it might bite. Finally, curiosity gets the better of you, and you pick up the receiver. "Hello?" you say, voice trembling slightly despite yourself. There's no response, just faint breathing on the other end. For a split second, you think it's a prank, but something about the rhythm of the breath feels deliberate. Historians still argue whether rotary phones were ever truly private, but one thing is certain: whoever or whatever is on the other end knows exactly who you are. You hang up quickly, chalking it up to some bored teenager messing around. But then it happens again, and again. Each time, the silence grows heavier, more oppressive. On the fourth ring, you answer angrily, ready to give whoever it is a piece of your mind. This time, there's a voice, a low, raspy whisper that sends shivers crawling up your spine. "Why did you answer?" it asks, almost mournfully. Before you can respond, the line goes dead. That's when you notice the smell, a faint metallic tang like blood, lingering in the air. You glance around your room, suddenly hyper-aware of every little detail. Did you leave the window open earlier? Is someone watching you right now? It's easy to dismiss these thoughts as paranoia, but deep down, you know something isn't right. People often joke about how technology has advanced so far that even our devices seem alive sometimes. What they don't tell you is that sometimes those devices really are alive, or at least connected to things we can't explain. Like the fact that during World War II, soldiers used carrier pigeons to send messages. Yet historians still debate whether some of those birds carried information beyond human comprehension. Sounds crazy, right? Well, buckle up, because things are about to get weirder. As you sit there trying to shake off the unease, the phone rings once more. Against all logic, you answer again, gripping the receiver so tightly your knuckles turn white. The voice returns, clearer this time, and it starts describing your surroundings. Not just vague details either. It lists everything in meticulous precision. Your favorite mug perched precariously on the edge of your desk. The faded poster of a band you haven't listened to in years hanging crookedly on the wall. Even the tiny scratch above your left eyebrow that you got last week. How could anyone possibly know these things? Unless they're closer than you think. Your hands begin to tremble as the implications sink in. If this person or entity knows so much about you, what else do they know? Are they watching you right now, biding their time until they decide to strike? Or worse, are they already inside your home, lurking just out of sight? You glance toward the door, half expecting it to burst open any second. Nothing happens, but the tension in the air is palpable. Funny how fear works, isn't it? 1 minute you're fine, and the next you're convinced there's a monster hiding behind every corner. Speaking of which, have you ever wondered why humans instinctively fear the dark? Some scientists believe it dates back to our caveman days when predators lurked in shadows. Others think it's something deeper, something primal that connects us to forces we can't fully understand. Either way, it doesn't help much when you're sitting alone in a dimly lit room, waiting for the phone to ring again. And ring it does, over and over, each call bringing new revelations that blur the line between reality and nightmare. By the time dawn breaks, you'll wish you'd never picked up that damn phone in the first place. But by then, it'll be too late, because whoever or whatever is calling knows exactly what buttons to push to keep you hooked. Literally. The voice on the line doesn't stop. It keeps talking, weaving a tapestry of details so intimate it feels like an invasion, not just of your space, but of your very soul. You're frozen in place. The phone pressed tightly to your ear as if breaking contact will unleash something worse. "I see you," it whispers, softer now, almost tender. You didn't close the curtains all the way. Your stomach drops because, yes, the curtains are slightly parted, and beyond them lies the yawning blackness of night. For a moment, you swear you see movement, a flicker at the edge of your vision, but when you blink, it's gone. Funny thing about shadows, they play tricks on us. Historians still argue whether ancient civilizations worship shadow-like entities or simply feared them. Either way, humans have always been uneasy around darkness, and for good reason. What hides in the dark isn't always harmless. Take the Okika dolls of Japan, for instance. Those creepy porcelain figures rumored to grow human hair over time. Sounds like a bad episode of Antiques Roadshow, right? But here's the kicker. Some collectors claim the dolls seem alive after sunset, their painted eyes following you across the room. Creepy stuff, sure, but nothing compared to what's happening to you right now. Back to the voice. It describes your posture slumped forward, your fingers gripping the receiver like a lifeline, and then, oh God, it mentions a scar on your ankle from that childhood bike accident. The one nobody knows about except you. How could anyone possibly know that? Unless this isn't the first time they've called. A chill runs down your spine as you realize you don't actually remember how long the phone has been ringing tonight. Has it been hours? Days? Or maybe this has been going on longer than you think. Maybe the voice has been watching or listening for years. You try hanging up again, slamming the receiver into its cradle with enough force to crack the plastic casing. Silence follows, brief and fleeting, before the shrill ring pierces the air once more. This time, you don't answer immediately. Instead, you stare at the phone, willing it to stop. But it doesn't. If anything, the rings grow louder, sharper, each one reverberating through your skull like a hammer striking glass. Finally, you give in, snatching up the phone with a hiss of frustration. What do you want? You demand, your voice cracking under the weight of fear. There's a pause, just long enough to make you wonder if the caller heard you. Then the voice responds, calm and measured. To help you, it says, and for a split second, you almost believe it. Almost. But then it adds, before it's too late. Before it's too late. You don't get a chance to ask because the line goes dead again, leaving you staring at the silent receiver in stunned disbelief. Help? From a disembodied voice describing your life in excruciating detail? Yeah, no thanks. Yet, deep down, part of you wonders if there's truth to what it said. After all, people have reported eerily similar experiences throughout history. During the Victorian era, seances were all the rage, and mediums claimed to communicate with spirits using everything from Ouija boards to crystal balls. Skeptics dismissed it as parlor tricks. But even today, historians can't fully explain why so many otherwise rational individuals swore these encounters felt real. Could it be possible that some voices really do come from beyond? Or is this just another elaborate hoax designed to mess with your head? Your thoughts are interrupted by a soft tapping sound coming from the window. At first, you think it's rain, but the weather app on your phone shows clear skies. Slowly, reluctantly, you turn toward the source of the noise. The curtain flutters slightly, disturbed by an unseen breeze, and for a moment, you catch a glimpse of something outside. Something pale and featureless, pressing against the glass. You stumble backward, heart pounding, and grab the nearest object, a heavy textbook, and brandish it like a weapon. When you muster the courage to look again, the figure is gone, but the tapping continues. It's funny how quickly fear can warp reality. 1 minute, you're convinced there's someone or something outside your window. The next, you're questioning whether you imagine the whole thing. That's the thing about horror. It thrives in uncertainty, feeding off your doubts until you're not sure what's real anymore. And right now, reality feels dangerously thin, like tissue paper stretched too far. The kind of thin where you half expect the walls to start bleeding or the floor to collapse beneath your feet. And then the phone rings again. This time, you don't hesitate. You rip the cord from the wall, silencing the incessant ringing once and for all. Relief washes over you, fleeting but sweet, until you hear it. The faintest whisper coming from somewhere nearby. Not from the phone, but closer, right behind you. You freeze, every muscle in your body locking into place as the whisper snakes its way into your ears. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably close, too close. You don't dare turn around. Instead, you strain your senses, trying to pinpoint the source of sound. Is it behind you? To your side? Or worse, right next to your ear, breathing softly against your skin? The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in as if the house itself is conspiring against you. Funny how fear does that. It transforms familiar spaces into labyrinths of dread. The whisper grows louder, clearer, and you realize it's repeating a single phrase over and over. Let me in. Your heart hammers in your chest, each beat echoing like a war drum inside your skull. Let you in? In where? And why would you ever consider doing such a thing? But even as these questions race through your mind, a tiny, irrational part of you wonders if maybe, just maybe, you should obey. After all, whatever this thing is, it already knows so much about you. What harm could opening a door or window really do? Historians still argue whether ancient cultures believed spirits could physically enter homes without permission, or if rituals were designed to symbolically invite them in. Either way, the idea of granting access to an unknown entity has always carried weight, especially in folklore. Take La Llorona, for example. The weeping woman said to haunt rivers and lakes across Latin America. Legend says she preys on children who wander too far from home, but some versions claim she'll also target adults foolish enough to answer her cries for help. Spoiler alert, helping her never ends well. But back to your situation. The whisper grows more insistent, almost pleading now, and you swear you can feel cold air brushing against the nape of your neck. You glance toward the window again, half expecting to see that pale, featureless figure staring back at you. Nothing there, just a dark void beyond the glass, waiting patiently like a predator stalking its prey. Yet the sensation of being watched intensifies, crawling under your skin until you're certain something or someone is standing just out of sight. You tell yourself it's paranoia. That old adage about seeing monsters in the shadows isn't just a saying. It's rooted in psychology. Human brains are wired to recognize patterns, even when none exist. That's why clouds sometimes look like animals, and random noises can sound like footsteps. But knowing this doesn't make the feeling go away. If anything, it makes it worse because deep down you know the truth. Not everything has a logical explanation. Still, you decide to test the theory. Slowly, cautiously, you pivot on your heel, scanning the room for any sign of movement. The desk lamp casts long, distorted shadows that dance across the walls, mocking your attempts to find clarity. Everything appears normal at first glance, but then you notice something odd. The curtains, which you distinctly remember closing earlier, are slightly parted again. Not wide open, but just enough to let the moonlight spill onto the floor in jagged streaks. Did you forget to close them properly? Or did something, or someone, reopen them while you weren't looking? Before you can investigate further, the tapping resumes. Louder this time, sharper, each knock reverberating through the glass like a heartbeat. You step closer, gripping the textbook tighter in one hand while the other reaches instinctively for your phone. Maybe calling someone will help. Not because they'll believe you, but because hearing another human voice might remind you that you're not alone. Except when you unlock your screen, the display is blank. No signal, no Wi-Fi, nothing, as if the world outside has been severed completely, leaving you stranded in this nightmare with no lifeline. And then the whispers stop. For a moment, silence reigns supreme, broken only by the soft of the fan overhead. You exhale, relief washing over you like a wave. Whatever it was, it's gone now, right? Wrong. Because as soon as you relax, the temperature in the room plummets. Your breath fogs in front of your face, and goosebumps erupt along your arms despite the blanket draped loosely around your shoulders. Something is here. Something icy and unnatural, radiating malice, so thick it's almost suffocating. You whirl around, eyes darting frantically across the room, searching for the source of the chill. That's when you see it. A shadow darker than the rest, hovering near the corner where the wall meets the ceiling. It doesn't move like a normal shadow would. Instead, it shifts and writhes as though alive. Its edges blur and stretch, reaching toward you like skeletal fingers. And within its depths, two pinpricks of light glow faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the tapping at the window. Oh God! You mutter, backing away until your spine hits the edge of the desk. Funny how quickly bravado evaporates in situations like this. 1 second, you're ready to confront whatever's haunting you. The next, you're reduced to a trembling mess, praying for salvation. But prayers rarely work in horror stories, do they? As if sensing your fear, the shadow creeps closer, inch by agonizing inch. The tapping stops abruptly, replaced by a low, guttural growl that seems to emanate from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Your grip tightens on the textbook, knuckles white, as you brace yourself for whatever comes next. Because something is coming. The shadow lunges, or at least, it feels like it does. In reality, it doesn't move an inch, but the sensation is so visceral you stumble backward anyway, knocking over a chair in your haste. The sound echoes through the room, sharp and jarring, breaking the spell just enough for you to realize how absurd this all is. A shadow? Really? This isn't some cheesy horror movie. This is your life. Shadows don't attack people. They're just absence of light, right? Right. Except this one keeps growing darker, denser, as if feeding off your fear. And those glowing pinpricks of light, they're definitely eyes now, watching you with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. You try to rationalize it away. Maybe it's a trick of the moonlight filtering through the window. Or maybe, just maybe, you finally cracked under the stress of too many sleepless nights and unanswered phone calls. Historians still argue whether prolonged isolation can warp perception to this extent, but one thing is certain. Humans aren't built to handle constant uncertainty. Still, you can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. The air grows heavier, almost suffocating, as if the shadow is sucking the oxygen out of the room. Your chest tightens, each breath shallow and labored, and you wonder briefly if this is what dying feels like. Spoiler alert, probably not, because death usually comes with finality. This feels more like suspension, a moment stretched in between terror and inevitability. That's when you notice the candle on the desk. It's old, dusty, and half-burnt, left behind by whoever lived here before you. Funny how objects carry their own kind of energy, isn't it? Some cultures believe candles hold spiritual significance, acting as conduits between worlds. Others dismiss them as mere tools for illumination. Either way, there's something undeniably eerie about finding one, unlit, yet warm to the touch. Like it knows something you don't. You reach for it without thinking, drawn by some inexplicable force. The wick sparks to life the moment your fingers brush against it. Not with fire, but with a pale blue flame that flickers erratically. No heat emanates from it, only cold radiating outward in waves. For a second, you consider blowing it out, but something stops you. Deep down, you know this flame wasn't meant to be extinguished. Not yet, anyway. The whispers return, louder this time, swirling around you like a vortex. Burn it. They hiss, urgent and insistent. Burn what? The candle? Yourself? You glance at the shadow again. It's closer now, its edges stretching toward you like tendrils of smoke. Whatever it is, it's hungry. Hungry for something you can't give it willingly. Against your better judgment, you decide to test the theory. You grab a scrap of paper from the desk, the receipt from last week's grocery run, and hold it above the flame. Nothing happens at first. Then, slowly, the paper begins to smolder, curling inward as if consumed by invisible hands. But instead of burning to ash, words appear on the surface, scrawled in jagged handwriting. Let me help. Help? Yeah, right. Because setting things on fire always ends well. Remember that documentary about the Great Chicago Fire? Spoiler, it didn't. Still, curiosity gets the better of you, and you find yourself compelled to keep going. Another scrap of paper meets the flame, then another, each one revealing fragments of cryptic messages. Time runs short. Trust no one. Save yourself. By the fourth piece, the shadow has stopped advancing. It hovers uncertainly near the corner, its glowing eyes dimming slightly as if confused or afraid. That's when it hits you. Whatever this thing is, it's not invincible. The candle, or rather, the flame, has power over it. Power you don't fully understand but are desperate to wield. But power always comes at a cost. As you continue feeding scraps of paper into the flame, the temperature in the room drops even further. Frost creeps along the edges of the windows, spreading outward in intricate patterns that resemble claw marks. The whispers grow frantic, overlapping until they form a cacophony of voices pleading, begging, threatening. "Stop," they shriek. "You will regret this." Do you stop? Of course not, because deep down you know two things. First, stopping means letting the shadow win. Second, you've already crossed a line you can't uncross. Whatever price you'll pay for using the candle, it's too late to turn back now. The final scrap of paper reveals a single word: run. Before you can process what it means, the flame sputters and dies, plunging the room into darkness. For a moment, everything is silent. Then the tapping resumes, louder, angrier, accompanied by the sound of splintering wood. Something is trying to get in, and it's almost through. The tapping escalates into a deafening barrage, each strike reverberating through the walls like thunder. The window pane cracks under the pressure, jagged lines spiderwebbing across the glass, as if it's struggling to hold back something impossibly strong. You take a step back, clutching the candle tightly in one hand while your other grips the textbook like a shield. Rationality whispers that you should run, but instinct roots you to the spot. After all, where would you go? The house feels like a cage now, its familiar corners warped into something alien and hostile. Funny how objects can change meaning depending on context. Earlier tonight, the candle was just another forgotten trinket gathering dust on your desk. Now it feels like a weapon, or maybe a curse. Historians still argue whether artifacts imbued with supernatural properties are remnants of ancient rituals or simply products of human imagination. Either way, you're beginning to suspect this particular candle wasn't left here by accident. Someone or something wanted you to find it. The splintering sound grows louder, accompanied by an unearthly groan that seems to emanate from the very foundation of the house. The shadow in the corner writhes violently, its glowing eyes blazing with renewed intensity. It's no longer content to lurk. It's preparing to strike. Your grip tightens on the candle as you scan the room for anything else that might help. A flashlight, a knife, even a heavy lamp. But everything is either too far away or useless against whatever's coming. Then, without warning, the radio on your desk crackles to life. Static fills the air, high-pitched and grating, followed by a distorted voice speaking in clipped mechanical tones. Do not open the window. You freeze, staring at the device in disbelief. It hasn't been turned on in weeks. Yet here it is, broadcasting a message meant specifically for you. How does it know about the window? And why does the voice sound so eerily calm, almost attached, as if delivering instructions from some distant control room? Static again, then another burst of clarity. They are listening. Who? Who's listening? Before you can process the implications, the voice cuts out, leaving only the relentless tapping and the sound of cracking wood. The window shudders violently, the fractured glass threatening to give way any second. Whatever's outside isn't patient anymore. It's angry, desperate, and determined to get in. Your mind races, trying to piece together the fragments of cryptic warnings you've received so far. Let me in. Burn it. Run. Do not open the window. They are listening. Each phrase feels like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit, yet somehow they're connected. If only you had more time to figure out. But time is a luxury you don't have. The tapping stops abruptly, replaced by an ominous silence. For a brief moment, you think it's over. Maybe whatever was trying to break and has given up. Then you hear it. The soft creak of the window sliding upward, followed by the faint rustle of fabric brushing against the sill. Something slips inside, landing silently on the floor. At first, you see nothing. Just the faint outline of the curtain swaying gently, as if stirred by an invisible breeze. But then the shadows shift, coalescing into a humanoid shape that stands upright and begins moving toward you. Its movements are jerky, unnatural, as if it's learning to walk for the first time. Yet despite its awkward gait, there's an undeniable sense of purpose driving it forward. You retreat instinctively, backing into the desk as the figure looms closer. It's featureless. Its head is smooth though devoid of eyes, nose, or mouth. Yet somehow, you feel its gaze boring into you, probing your thoughts, searching for weakness. Funny how fear amplifies detail, even when none exists. That's why people often describe ghosts as having hollow eyes or skeletal hands. Our brains fill in the blanks with imagery designed to terrify us further. But this isn't a ghost. At least, not in the traditional sense. This thing feels older, darker, like a fragment of something ancient and incomprehensible. And it wants you, not just to scare you, but to consume you. The radio crackles again, interrupting your spiraling thoughts. This time, the voice is clearer, more urgent. Use the flame. The flame? The candle's flame disappeared minutes ago, leaving only cold wax behind. Or did it? As you glance down at the object in your hand, you notice a faint glow emanating from the wick. It's barely visible, flickering weakly like a dying ember, but it's there. Without hesitation, you thrust the candle toward the approaching figure. The reaction is immediate. The shadow recoils, emitting a low, guttural growl that vibrates through the room. Its form wavers, dissolving momentarily before solidifying again. Clearly, the flame affects it, but not enough to destroy it outright. Whatever power the candle holds, it requires more than proximity to banish this thing entirely. That's when inspiration strikes. Sort of. Desperation fuels creativity. After all, remember that old rotary phone you yanked the cord out of earlier? Yeah, it's still sitting on the desk, useless but oddly symbolic. What if the messages weren't random? What if they were clues leading to something bigger? You glance between the phone and the advancing figure, weighing your options. One wrong move and you're toast. Or worse. But staying put guarantees failure. So, with trembling hands, you set the candle down and lunge for the receiver. The line is dead, of course. But that doesn't mean it can't be brought back to life. Your fingers fumble with the phone cord, reconnecting it to the wall outlet with a clumsy urgency. The shadow looms closer, its jerky movements now more fluid, as if gaining confidence or strength with each passing second. You can feel its presence pressing against you, an oppressive weight that makes it hard to breathe. Yet somehow, you manage to dial a number, not just any number, but the one etched into your memory from earlier tonight. The sequence of digits whisper through static and breathless warnings. The rotary clicks and spins, each rotation painfully slow, like time itself is conspiring against you. Funny how waiting feels interminable when your life hangs in the balance. Historians still argue whether human perception of time shifts during moments of extreme stress, or if it's merely a psychological illusion. Either way, those few seconds stretch into eternity as the phone emits a single, shrill ring. Then another, and another. On the fourth ring, someone answers. Hello. The voice on the other end is calm, almost serene, completely at odds with the chaos unfolding around you. It's not the raspy whisper from before. This one sounds human. Too human. A man's voice, deep and measured, with an accent you can't quite place. You shouldn't have called, he says, his tone carrying a note of regret rather than malice. Before you can respond, the shadow lunges, faster than you thought possible. Its featureless form barrels toward you, arms outstretched like a predator closing in on its prey. Instinct takes over, and you swing the receiver wildly, smacking the figure with enough force to send it stumbling backward. For a moment, it dissolves into smoke, retreating to the corner where it first appeared. But it doesn't stay gone for long. What do you want? You demand into phone, your voice cracking under the strain of adrenaline and panic. There's a pause on the other end, long enough to make you wonder if the caller heard you. Then, to warn you. Warn me about what? Another pause. This time, when the voice responds, it's tinged with sadness. About them. About what they'll do if they find you. Them? Great. Not only are you dealing with one shadowy nightmare, but apparently there's an entire entourage waiting in the wings. Just perfect. The radio crackles again, interrupting your conversation. Do not trust them. Trust who? The caller? Or the shadow? Before you can ask, the voice on the phone speaks again, louder this time, as if trying to drown out the interference. Listen carefully, he says. They're coming because of the flame. It's a beacon, a signal. If you don't extinguish it, they'll never stop hunting you. Extinguish it? After everything you've been through, after using it to fend off the shadow, you're supposed to snuff out the very thing keeping you alive? Yeah, no thanks. Some advice is better left ignored. Like that time historians debated whether Napoleon's retreat from Moscow was due to tactical errors or sheer stubbornness. Spoiler, it was both. Sometimes sticking to your guns pays off, even if it means ignoring questionable advice. Still, you hesitate. The voice sounds sincere, almost desperate. Could he be telling the truth? Or is this just another layer of manipulation designed to throw you off balance? The shadow chooses that moment to reassert itself, stepping away from the corner and resuming its advance. Only this time, it's different. Its edges shimmer faintly, as if illuminated by some unseen light source. And its once smooth surface ripples, forming crude approximations of facial features. Eyes, a nose, a gaping maw filled with jagged teeth. Oh, God, you mutter, clutching the phone tighter. Don't look at it, the caller shouts, his composure slipping. Whatever you do, don't let it speak. Speak? How could it possibly? The shadow opens its mouth, emitting a low, guttural sound that quickly morphs into words. Words spoken in your voice. Help me, it pleads, echoing the same phrase it used earlier. Except now, it sounds less like a command and more like a cry for salvation. Your resolve wavers. Is this thing truly evil, or is it just lost? Trapped between worlds, unable to move on until someone helps it find closure? People often joke about ghosts being misunderstood souls, seeking redemption. But what if there's truth to that theory? What if this isn't a monster at all, but a victim? The caller senses your hesitation. Don't fall for it, he snaps. It's lying. They always lie. Lying? Maybe. But so is everyone else involved in this mess, including him. The shadow takes another step forward, its glowing eyes locking onto yours with an intensity that makes your knees buckle. Please, it whispers, its voice trembling with emotion. I'm trapped. Help me leave. And then, without warning, the candle flares back to life in your hand. The pale blue flame roars upward, casting eerie shadows across the room. The shadow recoils instantly, letting out a piercing shriek that shakes the walls. Clearly, whatever connection exists between the two is far from friendly. You need to decide, the caller says urgently. Now. Decide what? To trust him or the shadow. To keep the flame burning or extinguish it. To run or fight. As if reading your mind, the radio crackles one final time. Burn the cord. Burn the cord? Seriously? That's the big reveal? But as you glance at the phone cord dangling loosely from the wall, you realize it might actually work. Cutting off communication could sever whatever link the shadow has to this world. Or worse, trap you here alone with it forever. Either way, you're running out of options. You stare at the phone cord, your mind racing through the implications of burning it. On one hand, severing the connection might disrupt whatever signal is tethering the shadow to your reality, essentially cutting its lifeline. On the other hand, doing so could also isolate you completely, leaving you without any means of calling for help or receiving further guidance. Historians still argue whether ancient rituals involving fire were intended to cleanse spaces of malevolent spirits or simply served as symbolic acts of purification. Either way, fire has always been a double-edged sword, destructive yet purifying, chaotic yet transformative. The shadow senses your indecision and seizes the opportunity. It lunges again, this time faster than ever, its jagged maw snapping shut mere inches from your face. You stumble backward, nearly dropping the candle in the process. Its flame flickers wildly, casting erratic shadows that dance across the walls like frenzied specters. The room feels smaller now, suffocating, as if the very air is conspiring to trap you here with this thing. Funny how fear distorts perception. 1 minute, you're convinced the shadow is an unstoppable force bent on consuming your soul. The next, you're almost sympathetic to its plight. After all, it did ask for help, or at least It sounded like it did. But then again, predators often mimic distress calls to lure their prey closer. Wolves do it. Spiders do it. Why should this be any different? Burn it! The caller shouts to the receiver, his voice rising in pitch. Do it now before it's too late. Too late for what? You want to ask, but there's no time. The shadow is advancing again. Its malformed features twisting into something grotesque. A mockery of humanity designed to unsettle you further. Its glowing eyes lock onto yours, and for a fleeting moment, you swear you see flashes of memories buried deep within them. Scenes of violence, despair, and longing play out like fragments of a broken film reel. Is this its past? Or yours? Before you can dwell on it, the radio crackles once more, delivering its cryptic message in clipped mechanical tones. Trust the flame. Trust the flame. Right. Because trusting anything right now seems like a terrible idea. Yet despite your reservations, you find yourself drawn to the candle's light. There's something undeniably powerful about it. Something ancient and primal that resonates deep within your core. It's not just illumination. It's a lifeline, a weapon, a key. With trembling hands, you lower the flame toward the phone cord. The plastic coating begins to melt instantly, curling away from the heat like burnt paper. Smoke rises in thin tendrils, filling the room with the acrid scent of scorched wiring. For a brief moment, nothing happens. Then with a deafening pop, the line goes dead. Silence follows, a heavy, oppressive silence that presses against your eardrums like a physical force. The shadow freezes mid-step, its form wavering as if caught between worlds. Its glowing eyes dim slightly, losing some of their intensity. Whatever connection it had to this plane has been disrupted, but not severed entirely. The caller's voice echoes faintly in your mind, a ghostly reminder of what just transpired. Was he trying to save you? Or was he complicit in bringing this thing here in the first place? Either way, he's gone now, leaving you alone with the consequences of your actions. That's when you notice the mirror on the far wall. It's small, framed in tarnished silver, and positioned awkwardly above a cluttered dresser. Normally, you wouldn't give a second thought. It's just another piece of furniture gathering dust. But tonight, it's impossible to ignore. Because staring back at you isn't your reflection. At first glance, it looks like you, but only superficially. The figure in the mirror wears your face, your clothes, even mimics your posture down to the slightest detail. Yet something is off. Its movements are delayed, lagging behind yours by a fraction of a second, as if operating on a separate timeline. And its eyes, they're darker, colder, devoid of any warmth or humanity. You take a cautious step forward, half expecting the figure to mimic your movement. Instead, it remains perfectly still, watching you with an unnerving intensity. Funny how mirrors have always fascinated and terrified humans throughout history. Some cultures believe they act as portals to alternate dimensions, while others view them as tools for divination or self-reflection. Both interpretations feel uncomfortably relevant right now. As you study the figure, it tilts its head slightly, studying you in return. Then, without warning, it smiles. Not a friendly smile, but a predatory grin that reveals rows of razor-sharp teeth. Your breath catches in your throat. This isn't just a distorted reflection. It's something else entirely. Something worse. The shadow takes advantage of your distraction, lunging forward with renewed vigor. You barely manage to sidestep it, narrowly avoiding its grasping hands. The candle flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. That's when you notice something peculiar. The figure in the mirror isn't reacting to the light. In fact, it seems completely unaffected by it, as if existing outside its influence. Whatever it is, it's not bound by the same rules as a shadow. Which begs the question, what exactly are you dealing with now? The figure in the mirror doesn't move, or rather, it moves independently of you now. Its grin widens, stretching unnaturally across its face, until it seems to split the reflection in two. For a moment, you're paralyzed, caught between the shadow closing behind you and this new, equally unsettling presence staring back at you from the glass. Funny how horror has a way of piling on threats like layers of suffocating blankets. One monster isn't enough. No, there always has to be another lurking just out of sight. Don't look at it. You mutter under your breath, repeating the caller's earlier warning. But even as you say it, you know it's futile. Your eyes are locked on the mirror, drawn magnetically to the grotesque caricature of yourself that stares back with cold indifference. Historians still argue whether ancient cultures believed mirrors could trap souls or simply reflect them in distorted ways. Either way, one thing is certain. Whatever is happening here defies logic and likely sanity. The shadow lets out a low growl, snapping your attention back to the immediate danger. It's closer now, its jagged form looming over you like a storm cloud about to break. Its glowing eyes narrow, as if irritated by the competition for your focus. Clearly, it doesn't appreciate being upstaged, even by something as bizarre as a doppelganger trapped in reflective glass. You glance between the two entities, weighing your options. The shadow is tangible, at least tangible enough to attack you physically. The figure in the mirror, however, remains confined to its surface, unable or unwilling to cross into your reality. Yet its presence feels more invasive somehow, as if it's worming its way into your mind rather than your space. "What do you want?" you whisper, directing the question at both threats simultaneously. Neither answers, not directly, anyway. Instead, the shadow lunges again, forcing you to stumble backward toward the mirror. The figure inside smirks, tilting its head slightly as if amused by your predicament. Then, without warning, it raises a hand and points, not you, but at the candle clutched tightly in your grip. The implication is clear. The flame is key. But key to what? Destroying the shadow? Banishing the reflection? Or sealing your fate entirely? Before you can decide, the shadow strikes, swiping at you with claw-like appendages that seem to materialize out of thin air. You dodge instinctively, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The movement sends you sprawling onto the floor, the candle skittering several feet away. Its flame flickers erratically, casting chaotic shadows that dance across the walls like frenzied spirits. For a moment, everything goes silent. The shadow freezes mid-motion, its glowing eyes fixed on the candle. The figure in the mirror does the same, its smirk fading into an expression of intense concentration. Both seem afraid of the flame. Funny how fear reveals truths we'd otherwise overlook. People often joke about how monsters are supposed to be invincible, yet here you are, holding something capable of scaring them off. Sort of empowering, isn't it? Like finding out garlic really does repel vampires. Or discovering that bats actually hate loud noises. Sometimes, folklore contains kernels of truth buried beneath layers of exaggeration. But empowerment doesn't last long when you're lying on the floor, vulnerable and exposed. The shadow recovers quickly, advancing once more with renewed determination. Meanwhile, the figure in the mirror begins mimicking its movements, step for step, as if rehearsing some macabre dance routine. Their synchronization is uncanny, almost hypnotic, making it hard to focus on anything else. That's when you notice something odd. Every time the shadow takes a step forward, the figure in the mirror lags slightly behind, just enough to create a subtle delay. At first glance, it seems insignificant, barely noticeable. But the more you watch, the clearer it becomes. They aren't moving in perfect unison. They're out of sync. Could be possible that these two entities exist on separate planes of reality, overlapping only briefly whenever their timelines align. Historians still argue whether parallel dimensions are purely theoretical constructs or actual phenomena supported by fringe science. Either way, the idea is both fascinating and horrifying in equal measure. The shadow reaches for you again, its claws inches from your face. You roll sideways just in time, scrambling toward the candle. Your fingers brush against its base, sending it spinning wildly across the floor. The flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. Both the shadow and the figure in the mirror recoil instantly, letting out synchronized shrieks that shake the walls. Clearly, the flame affects them, but not equally. While the shadow dissolves momentarily into smoke, the figure in the mirror merely stumbles backward, clutching its head as if in pain. This distinction gives you an idea, a crazy, desperate idea born of exhaustion and adrenaline. What if the flame isn't meant to destroy either entity outright? What if its purpose is to reveal their weaknesses instead? With trembling hands, You grab the candle and hold it aloft, positioning yourself between the two threats. The shadow hesitates, its form wavering uncertainly. The figure in the mirror glares at you, its smirk replaced by a look of pure hatred. Time to test the theory. You take a deep breath, steadying yourself as a flame casts its pale blue light across the room. The shadow hovers uncertainly, its jagged edges flickering like static on an old TV screen. Meanwhile, the figure in the mirror leans forward, pressing itself against the glass as if trying to break through. Its movements are jerky, unnatural, and its eyes, those cold, soulless eyes, are locked on a candle with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. This is it, the moment of truth. With deliberate slowness, you lower the flame toward the shadow first. It recoils instantly, dissolving into wisps of smoke that swirl around the room before forming several feet away. Clearly, the flame repels it, but only temporarily. Whatever connection exists between them isn't strong enough to banish the shadow outright. Still, the reaction confirms one thing. The flame holds power over this entity. Power you can exploit if you're careful. Next, you turn your attention to the mirror. Holding the candle aloft, you step closer until your reflection and the figure mimicking it is illuminated in stark detail. For a split second, nothing happens. Then, with a deafening crack, the surface of the mirror ripples like water disturbed by a thrown stone. The figure inside flinches visibly, raising both hands to shield its face from the light. Funny how mirrors have always been symbols of duality. Portals to alternate cells or dimensions where rules don't apply. Historians still argue whether shattered mirrors truly bring 7 years of bad luck, or if the superstition stems from ancient beliefs about fragmented souls. Either way, watching this one ripple unnaturally feels like witnessing something forbidden, as if reality itself is bending under the weight of your actions. The figure lets out a guttural scream, low and distorted, echoing through the room like feedback from a broken speaker. It claws at the glass, leaving faint scratches that vanish almost immediately, as if the mirror is repairing itself faster than the damage can be done. Yet despite its efforts, it remains trapped, unable to escape but equally unable to retreat. That's when inspiration strikes. Sort of. Desperation fuels creativity. After all, remember those old photos tucked away in shoeboxes or forgotten albums gathering dust in attics? Yeah, they're relics of the past. Frozen moments in time meant preserve memories forever. But what if some photographs capture more than just images? What if they record fragment of energy, or worse, entities, that linger long after the shutter clicks? It's a fringe theory, sure, but not entirely unfounded. Some paranormal investigators claim certain photos contain anomalies invisible to the naked eye. Orbs, shadows, even faces peering out from backgrounds. Skeptics dismiss these claims as lens flares or digital artifacts, but others believe they're glimpses into worlds beyond our understanding. Either way, the idea sparks a plan in your mind, a risky, half-baked plan that might just work. You glance around the room, searching for anything resembling a photograph. There's nothing obvious. No framed family portraits or vintage Polaroids lie around, but then your eyes land on the dresser beneath the mirror. A small stack of papers sits atop it, partially obscured by clutter. You lunge forward, grabbing the topmost sheet and holding up to the light. It's not a photo. It's a sketch, a crude drawing of a house surrounded by trees, rendered in pencil with meticulous detail. At first glance, it seems innocuous, almost childish. But as you study it closer, you notice something strange. The windows of the house are filled with tiny figures staring outward, their faces twisted into expressions of anguish. "Help us," whispers a voice, not from the shadow of the mirror, but from the paper itself. Your grip tightens reflexively, nearly tearing the fragile page in half. Funny how objects carry echoes of their creator's intentions or fears. That's why people often feel uneasy handling antiques. They sense the weight of history embedded within them. This sketch feels heavy too, burdened by emotions far darker than mere nostalgia. The shadow reacts violently, lunging toward you with renewed ferocity. You sidestep just in time, narrowly avoiding its grasp. Meanwhile, the figure in the mirror bangs furiously against the glass, its distorted features contorted with rage. Both seem desperate to stop you, but why? Before you can dwell on it, The flame flares brighter, illuminating the sketch in vivid detail. The tiny figures in the windows begin moving, clawing at the glass as if trying to escape. Their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes wide with terror. Clearly, this isn't just a drawing, it's a prison, and you're holding the key. The realization hits you like a freight train. This sketch isn't just some random doodle. It's a vessel, a container for something ancient and malevolent, bound within its inked lines and shaded corners. The tiny figures clawing the windows aren't drawings. They're trapped souls, or fragments of them, begging for release. And now, thanks to the flame's light, their prison is beginning to crack. Funny how art can blur the line between creation and captivity. Historians still argue whether certain works of art are inspired by muses or haunted by spirits. Some believe Vincent van Gogh's swirling skies were more than just artistic expression. They were glimpses into his fractured psyche. Others claim Michelangelo's sculptures seem alive because he channeled divine energy into stone. Either way, the sketch feels different. It's not art, it's a curse. The shadow lunges again, its form dissolving momentarily into smoke before forming inches from your face. Its glowing eyes narrow, as if sensing what you're about to do and hating you for it. Meanwhile, the figure in the mirror slams its fist against the glass with increasing desperation, cracking the surface further with each impact. Both entities seem determined to stop you. But why? Are they guardians of this cursed artifact, or victims themselves, bound to protect it at all costs? You glance down at the sketch again, the flame casting erratic shadows across its surface. The tiny figures have stopped clawing at the windows now, turning their attention toward you instead. Their faces twist into expressions of gratitude, or maybe hunger. Hard to tell when they're drawn in pencil. What happens if I let them out? You whisper aloud, half expecting an answer. None comes, not directly, anyway. Instead, the radio crackles back to life, delivering its message in clipped mechanical tones. Time runs backward. Backward? What does that even mean? Time doesn't run backward. It flows forward, relentless and unstoppable. Or does it? People often joke about wanting to turn back time to fix mistakes. But what if someone actually could? Would they undo harm or unleash chaos? Before you can ponder the implications, the shadow strikes, swiping at the sketch with claw-like appendages. You stumble backward, clutching the paper tightly in one hand while holding the candle aloft with the other. The flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. For a brief moment, everything freezes. The shadow mid-lunge, the figure in the mirror poised to shatter the glass, the tiny figures in the windows suspended in place like characters frozen in a flipbook. Then, without warning, time reverses. It's subtle at first, a faint rewinding sensation, like watching footage played backward frame by frame. Objects around the room shift slightly, moving to positions they occupied moments ago. The cracked mirror repairs itself, the scratches fading until the surface is smooth and unblemished. The shadow dissolves completely, retreating into nothingness as if erased from existence. Even the tapping at the window ceases, leaving only silence behind. But the strangest part? You remember none of it. At least, not consciously. Deep down, fragments of memory linger. Echoes of events you know happened but can't quite recall. Like waking up after a vivid dream and struggling to piece together the details before they slip away entirely. Funny how the mind protects itself from trauma, burying painful truths beneath layers of denial and forgetfulness. The sketch remains clutched in your hand, its surface eerily pristine despite the earlier chaos. The tiny figures in the windows are still there, but their movements are sluggish now, almost lethargic, as if drained of energy. Whatever power fueled their rebellion has dissipated, leaving them trapped once more. For now, that's when you notice the clock on the wall. Its hands are spinning counterclockwise, ticking backward with mechanical precision. Each second feels heavier than the last, dragging you deeper into a loop of déjà vu and disorientation. Moments you thought were over replay themselves in reverse order. The shadow retreating, the mirror cracking, the flame flickering wildly. Everything unfolds backward until you're standing exactly where you started, staring at the rotary phone as if nothing ever happened. Except something did happen. You know it. You feel it in your bones. But proving it is another matter entirely. The radio crackles again, interrupting your spiraling thoughts. This time, the voice is softer, almost apologetic. Burn the sketch. Burn it. After everything you've been through, after realizing its significance, you're supposed to destroy it outright? Yeah, no thanks. Some advice is better left ignored. Like that time historians debated whether burning books was an act of censorship or preservation. Spoiler, it was both. Sometimes destruction creates clarity, but also erases history, leaving gaps no one can fill. Still, the flame beckons. Its pale blue light dances across the sketch, highlighting imperfections invisible to the naked eye. Tiny cracks spiderweb across the surface, as if the paper itself is resisting further interference. Whatever's trapped inside doesn't want to be freed, but it also doesn't want to stay confined forever. You glance at the clock again. The hands continue spinning counterclockwise. Faster now, pulling you deeper into the loop. If you don't act soon, you'll be stuck reliving these moments indefinitely, trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty with no way out. So, against your better judgment, you lower the flame toward the sketch. The flame touches the edge of the sketch, and the paper ignites instantly. Not with a roaring blaze, but a slow, creeping burn that consumes it inch by inch. The tiny figures in the windows writhe frantically as the fire spreads, their silent screams reverberating through the room like echoes from another dimension. For a moment, you feel a pang of guilt, as if you're committing an unforgivable act. But then you remember the shadow lunging at you, the figure in the mirror pressing against the glass, the clock spinning backward. Whatever these entities are, they don't belong here, and neither does this cursed artifact. Funny how destruction can feel both liberating and horrifying at the same time. Historians still argue whether burning objects imbued with supernatural energy purifies them or simply transfers their power elsewhere. Some cultures believe fire acts as a cleansing agent, banishing malevolent forces back to the void. Others view it as a catalyst, awakening dormant energies better left undisturbed. Either way, watching the sketch burn feels like participating in something ancient and primal, a ritual older than memory itself. As the flames consume the paper, the room begins to shift. Shadows stretch and warp, twisting into shapes that defy logic. The air grows heavier, almost suffocating, as if the house itself is resisting the change. The clock on the wall slows its backward spin, each tick louder and more deliberate than the last. Then, with a final, deafening chime, it stops altogether. Silence follows. A heavy, oppressive silence that presses against your eardrums like a physical force. The fire dies down, leaving behind only ash that crumbles into dust in your hands. Yet despite the apparent resolution, something feels unfinished. That's when you hear it. A faint whisper rises from the floorboards beneath your feet, low and guttural. Overlapping voices, speaking in languages you don't recognize. At first, it's barely audible, almost drowned out by the soft of the fan overhead. But as you stand there, frozen in place, the sound grows louder, more insistent. Let us out, they plead, their tone shifting between desperation and anger. We helped you. Helped you? Hardly. If anything, they've made things worse. Every step forward has been met with resistance. Every revelation accompanied by new threats. And now, after destroying the sketch, they have the audacity to demand repayment? No! You mutter under your breath, gripping the candle tightly. You don't get to ask for anything. The whispers intensify, rising to a cacophony of overlapping voices that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. They're not just beneath the floorboards anymore. They're inside the walls, behind the curtains, even in the empty spaces between breaths. It's as if the entire house has become a conduit for their collective anguish. And yet, amidst the chaos, one voice stands out. Clearer, calmer, almost soothing compared to the others. You misunderstand. It says, its tone carrying a note of regret rather than malice. We didn't trap you, we saved you. Saved you? From what? The shadow? The mirror? Yourself? Before you can respond, the radio crackles back to life, delivering its message in clipped mechanical tones. They lie. Lie? Of course they lie. You've known that from the start, or at least suspected it. But hearing it confirmed doesn't make the decision any easier. Do you trust the disembodied voice over the radio, which has offered cryptic warnings all night? Or do you listen to the whispers beneath the floorboards, whose motives remain unclear, but whose presence feels undeniable? Before you can decide, the whispers grow frantic, pleading with a desperation that borders on hysteria. "Burn the house!" they shriek, their voices overlapping until they form a single, unified command. Burn it all. Burn the house? Seriously? That's their solution. To destroy everything, including yourself in the process? Yeah, no thanks. Some advice is better left ignored. Like that time historians debated whether arson was ever justified as an act of rebellion. Spoiler, it rarely ended well for anyone involved. Still, the suggestion lingers, worming its way into your subconscious, like a splinter you can't remove. Could it work? Would burning the house sever whatever connection exists between this world and theirs, trapping them permanently in the void? Or would it unleash something far worse? Something beyond comprehension? The clock on the wall ticks once, breaking the silence. Funny how such a small sound can carry so much weight. Each second stretches longer than the last, dragging you deeper into indecision. Meanwhile, the whispers continue, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. "You can't escape us," they hiss, their tone shifting from pleading to threatening. "Not forever." Forever? Great, because nothing says comforting like eternal torment. You glance around the room, searching for anything that might help, a weapon, a hiding spot, even a distraction. But everything is either too far away or useless against whatever's coming. The shadow is gone, the mirror repaired, the sketch reduced to ash. All that remains is a candle, and the voices beneath the floorboards. Voices that won't stop. The voices beneath the floorboards swell into a deafening roar, vibrating through your bones like the hum of an approaching storm. You press your hands over your ears, but it's no use. The sound isn't external, it's inside. You, clawing at the edges of your mind with relentless ferocity. Funny how noise can transcend physical boundaries, becoming something more invasive than mere vibration. Historians still argue whether ancient civilizations believed certain sounds could summon spirits or banish them altogether. Either way, this cacophony feels less like communication and more like invasion, a hostile takeover of your thoughts. Burn it. The voices scream again, their collective voice now a single guttural command. Burn it all. Burn what? The house? Yourself? Or is this just another layer of manipulation designed to push you towards self-destruction? People often joke about how horror movies punish characters for making bad decisions, but here you are, standing at the crossroads of madness and survival, wondering which path leads to salvation and which to ruin. You glance down at the candle in your hand, its pale blue flame flickering weakly as if sensing your hesitation. It's been both weapon and lifeline throughout this nightmare. Yet now it feels heavier, almost burdensome, as if carrying the weight of every choice you've made tonight. And somehow, you know, using it again will change everything. But change isn't always progress. Before you can decide, the floorboards beneath your feet tremble violently, splitting apart with a sharp crack that echoes through the room. Splinters fly in every direction, forcing you to stumble backward as something dark and writhing begins to emerge from the newly formed gap. At first, it looks like smoke, but unlike any smoke you've ever seen. Its tendrils are solid yet fluid, coiling around each other like serpents locked in a deadly dance. And then it speaks. "We warned you," it hisses, its voice layered with countless others, overlapping into a symphony of malice. "We gave you a chance." A chance? To do what? Destroy the sketch? Burn the house? Or simply surrender to the inevitable? Before you can respond, the entity surges upward, filling the space between you and the ceiling with its grotesque form. Its surface shifts constantly, forming crude approximations of faces. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, all screaming silently as if trapped within its depths. For a moment, you're paralyzed, caught between disbelief and terror. This isn't just one entity, it's many. Fragments of souls bound together by some unseen force, their collective anguish manifesting as a single monstrous presence. And it's angry. No! You whisper, clutching the candle tighter. I didn't ask for this. You never do, it replies, its tone dripping with mockery. Yet here we are. Here you are indeed, standing in the ruins of your home, or what's left of it, with nothing but a dying flame and a rapidly deteriorating grip on reality. Funny how life has a way of spiraling out of control when you least expect it. That's why people often joke about waking up in alternate realities after particularly vivid dreams. Except this isn't a dream. This is real. Real enough. Anyway, the entity lunges forward, its tendrils stretching toward you with unnatural speed. Instinct takes over, and you swing the candle wildly, smacking the nearest tendril with enough force to send it recoiling backward. The flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. For a brief moment, the entity hesitates, its form wavering uncertainly. Clearly, the flame affects it, but not enough to destroy it outright. That's when the radio crackles back to life, delivering its message in clipped mechanical tones. Dreams bleed into reality. Bleed into reality? What does that even mean? Are you dreaming right now? Have you been dreaming all along? Or worse, is this some kind of liminal space where dreams and waking life overlap, creating a hybrid nightmare, neither fully conscious nor unconscious? People often dismiss the idea of shared dreams as pseudoscience, but historians still argue whether certain cultures believe dreamscapes could influence reality, or vice versa. Some claim lucid dreaming was used as a tool for divination, while others view it as a gateway to alternate dimensions. Either way, the implication is clear. Whatever's happening here transcends normal perception. The entity recovers quickly, resuming its advance with renewed determination. Its tendrils coil around furniture, snapping wooden legs and shattering glass as if clearing a path. Meanwhile, the whispers beneath the floorboards grow louder, overlapping until they form a single, unified command. Let go. Let go? Of what? The candle? Your sanity? Or something deeper? Something intrinsic to who you are? Before you can decide, the flame flickers erratically, casting chaotic shadows that dance across the walls like frenzied spirits. The room feels smaller now, suffocating, as if the very air is conspiring to trap you here with this thing. Yet amidst the chaos, something strange happens. The faces embedded within the entity begin to shift, morphing into reflections of yourself. Dozens of you, hundreds of you, each one staring back with cold indifference, or worse, hatred. Funny how mirrors reveal truths we'd rather ignore. That's why people often avoid looking too closely at their reflections, fearing what they might see beneath the surface. But these aren't just reflections, they're possibilities. Alternate versions of yourself existing simultaneously, each one representing a choice you could have made or failed to make, and they're closing in. The alternate versions of yourself stretch and contort, their features shifting unnaturally as if struggling to break free from the entity's grasp. Some were expressions of anger, others of sorrow, but all share one thing in common. They're staring directly at you, not just looking, staring, with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. It's as if they're accusing you of something, though you can't quite pinpoint what. Funny how guilt manifests in strange ways. Historians still argue whether humans experience regret universally or if it's a culturally constructed emotion. Either way, standing here surrounded by fractured reflections of yourself feels like being judged by a jury of your own worst decisions. Spoiler alert, the verdict isn't favorable. The entity surges forward again, its tendrils wrapping around furniture and walls with unnatural strength. The house groans under the pressure, its foundation creaking ominously as if preparing to collapse. Dust rains down from the ceiling, mingling with splinters of wood and shards of broken glass. Yet despite the chaos, the whispers beneath the floorboards grow louder, more insistent. Let go! They repeat, their tones shifting between pleading and commanding. You can't fight us forever. Forever? Great, because nothing says reassuring like eternal conflict. Before you can respond, the flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. For a brief moment, the entity recoils, its form dissolving into smoke before forming several feet away. Clearly, the flame holds power over it, but not enough to banish it outright. Whatever connection exists between them isn't strong enough to sever completely. That's when inspiration strikes. Sort of. Desperation fuels creativity. After all, remember those old stories about shadow people lurking in the corners of rooms, watching silently as their victims sleep? Yeah, they're often dismissed as sleep paralysis hallucinations, or worse, figments of an overactive imagination. But what if they're real? What if they're a fragment of something larger, bound together by unseen forces? It's a fringe theory, sure, but not entirely unfounded. Some paranormal. Investigators claim shadows are more than just absence of light. They're conduits, vessels for energy too chaotic to exist in physical form. Skeptics dismiss these claims as pseudoscience, but others believe they're glimpses into worlds beyond our understanding. Either way, the idea sparks a plan in your mind, a risky, half-baked plan that might just work. You glance around the room, searching for anything resembling a reflective surface. There's nothing obvious. No mirrors or windows left intact. But then your eyes land on the shattered remains of the dresser mirror. A single shard lies amidst the debris, its jagged edge glinting faintly in the flickering light. You lunge forward, grabbing it and holding it aloft like a weapon. The entity reacts instantly, recoiling as if burned. Its tendrils writhe violently, coiling back into itself like a wounded animal. Meanwhile, the alternate versions of yourself embedded within its form begin screaming silently, their faces twisting into masks of pure agony. Clearly, the shard holds power over it. But why? Is it because mirrors reflect truth, or because they trap lies? Funny how reflection has always been a double-edged sword. People often joke about how mirrors show us who we really are, but what if they reveal more than just appearances? What if they expose truths we'd rather keep hidden, even from ourselves? That's why some cultures hang mirrors above doorways, believing they ward off evil spirits. Others view them as portals to alternate dimensions where rules don't apply. Either way, this shard feels different. It's not protection, it's confrontation. With trembling hands, you position the shard so it catches a candle's flame, redirecting its pale blue light toward the entity. The reaction is immediate. The entity convulses violently, its form dissolving into smoke before forming closer to the floor. Meanwhile, the alternate versions of yourself begin fading, their screams replaced by silence. But the victory is short-lived. As the entity retreats, something else emerges from the shadows, something darker, colder, almost imperceptible. At first, it looks like a silhouette, featureless and indistinct, hovering near the corner where the wall meets the ceiling. Then, slowly, deliberately, it begins moving toward you. It's not alone. Behind it, another figure materializes, and then another, until the room is filled with silent, unseen passengers. Their forms are vague, almost translucent, yet their presence is undeniable. Each one radiates malice, filling the air with an oppressive weight that makes it hard to breathe. Clearly, destroying the sketch wasn't enough. By freeing the trapped souls, you've unleashed something far worse. Something ancient and incomprehensible. And now, there's nowhere left to run. The unseen passengers fill the room, their forms shifting and writhing like smoke caught in a draft. They don't move with purpose, not yet, but their presence is suffocating, pressing against your chest until each breath feels like a struggle. Funny how fear amplifies detail, even when none exists. That's why people often describe ghosts as having hollow eyes or skeletal hands. Our brains fill in the blanks with imagery designed to terrify us further. But these entities aren't ghosts, at least not in the traditional sense. There's something older, darker, like fragments of an ancient void given fleeting shape by your terror. You grip the shard of mirror tighter, its jagged edge digging into your palm as if reminding you it's real. The candle's flame flickers erratically, casting chaotic shadows that dance across the walls like frenzied spirits. For a moment, everything freezes. The unseen passengers mid-motion, the entity dissolving into smoke, the whispers beneath the floorboards silenced. Then, without warning, time reverses again. It's subtle at first, a faint rewinding sensation, like watching footage played backward frame by frame. Objects around the room shift slightly, moving to positions they occupied moments ago. The shattered remains of the dresser repair themselves, the splinters fusing back together until the surface is smooth and unblemished. The entity reforms, its tendrils stretching outward with renewed vigor. Even the alternate versions of yourself embedded within it reappear, their faces twisted into expressions of anguish. But the strangest part? You remember none of it. At least, not consciously. Deep down, fragments of memory linger. Echoes of events you know happened but can't quite recall. Like waking up after a vivid dream and struggling to piece together the details before they slip away entirely. Funny how the mind protects itself from trauma, burying painful truths beneath layers of denial and forgetfulness. The unseen passengers remain, however, unaffected by the reversal. Their forms grow more distinct, solidify into humanoid shapes that hover silently, watching you with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. One of them steps forward, or rather, glides, its movements fluid and unnatural, as if defying gravity. Its face is featureless, a smooth oval devoid of eyes, nose, or mouth. Yet somehow, you feel its gaze boring into you, probing your thoughts, searching for weakness. "What do you want?" you whisper, your voice trembling under the weight of exhaustion and adrenaline. There's no response, at least not verbal. Instead, the figure raises a hand, pointing toward the candle in your grip. The implication is clear. The flame is key. Again, key to what? Destroying the entity? Banishing the unseen passengers? Or sealing your fate entirely? Before you can decide, the radio crackles back to life, delivering its message in clipped mechanical tones. Letters will come. Letters? What letters? From who or what? Before you can dwell on it, the unseen passenger lunges, faster than you thought possible. Its form dissolves momentarily into smoke before reforming inches from your face. Instinct takes over, and you swing the shard wildly, smacking the figure with enough force to send it stumbling backward. It dissolves instantly, retreating to the corner where it first appeared. But it doesn't stay gone for long. One by one, the other passengers advance, their movements synchronized like a macabre ballet. They circle you slowly, deliberately, cutting off any chance of escape. Meanwhile, the entity surges forward again, its tendrils wrapping around furniture and walls with unnatural strength. The house groans under pressure, its foundation creaking ominously as if preparing to collapse. Dust rains down from the ceiling, mingling with splinters of wood and shards of broken glass. Yet despite the chaos, the whispers beneath the floorboards return, overlapping until they form a single unified command. Write your name. Write your name? On what? With what? Before you can respond, something heavy lands in your lap. A leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. Funny how objects appear out of nowhere in moments like this. That's why people often joke about horror movies conveniently providing weapons or tools just when characters need them most. Except this isn't a movie. This is real. Real enough. Anyway, you glance at the journal, then at the unseen passengers closing in around you. Clearly, writing your name is supposed to accomplish something. But what? Summon help? Seal a pact? Or worse, bind you permanently to whatever nightmare you're trapped in? Before you can decide, the flame flares brighter, illuminating the room in stark relief. For a brief moment, the unseen passengers hesitate, their forms wavering uncertainly. The entity recoils, instantly, dissolving into smoke before reforming several feet away. Clearly, the flame holds power over them, but not enough to destroy them outright. Whatever connection exists between them isn't strong enough to sever completely. That's when inspiration strikes. Sort of. Desperation fuels creativity, after all. Remember those old stories about cursed objects carrying messages meant only for their owners? Yeah, they're often dismissed as urban legends, or worse, hoaxes designed to scare gullible tourists. But what if they're real? What if some objects record fragments of energy, or worse, entities, that linger long after the ink dries? With trembling hands, you open a journal to the first blank page and hold a shard of mirror like a pen. The tip glints faintly in the flickering light, catching the reflection of the unseen passengers as they close in. And then, without hesitation, you begin to write. The shard of mirror scrapes across the page. leaving behind not ink but faint, shimmering lines that glow faintly in the candlelight. At first, you write your name. Simple, straightforward. But as you continue, the words seem to take on a life of their own. Letters twist and curl unnaturally, forming patterns that defy logic yet feel strangely familiar, like echoes of a language buried deep within your subconscious. Funny how writing can feel both liberating and invasive at the same time. Historians still argue whether ancient scripts were inspired by divine intervention or simply products of human imagination. Some believe runes and glyphs carried magical properties, while others dismiss them as symbolic representations of cultural values. Either way, this journal feels different. It's not just paper, it's a conduit, channeling something far older and more primal than anything you've encountered so far. As you write, the unseen passengers react violently, recoiling as if burned. Their forms dissolve momentarily into smoke before forming closer to the walls, watching you with an intensity that borders on hatred. Meanwhile, the entity surges forward again, its tendrils stretching toward you with unnatural speed. But now it hesitates, wavering uncertainly as if sensing the shift in power dynamics. Clearly, the act of writing holds significance, but why? Is it because words carry intent, shaping reality through sheer force of will? Or is it because this particular journal was never meant for you? Before you can dwell on it, the whispers beneath the floorboards return, overlapping until they form a single, unified command. Stop. Stop? Seriously? After everything you've been through, after realizing the journal's potential, you're supposed to stop now? Yeah, no thanks. Some advice is better left ignored. Like that time historians debated whether unfinished manuscripts contain curses or simply unresolved narratives. Spoiler, it was both. Sometimes endings create closure, but they also leave gaps no one can fill. Still, the suggestion lingers, worming its way into your subconscious, like a splinter you can't remove. Could it work? Would stopping sever whatever connection exists between this world and theirs, trapping them permanently in the void? Or would it unleash something far worse? Something beyond comprehension? The unseen passengers close, and again, their forms solidifying into humanoid shapes that hover silently, watching you with cold indifference. One of them steps forward, or rather, glides, its movements fluid and unnatural, as if defying gravity. Its face is featureless, a smooth old devoid of eyes, nose, or mouth. Yet somehow, you feel its gaze boring into you, probing your thoughts, searching for weakness. And then it speaks, not with words, but with emotion. A wave of despair washes over you, so intense it brings tears to your eyes. Memories flood your mind, unbidden and unwelcome. Moment of failure, regret, loss. You see faces you thought you'd forgotten. Hear voices you swore you'd silenced. Each memory feels heavier than the last, dragging you deeper into a spiral of self-doubt and guilt. Funny how fear thrives on uncertainty, feeding off your doubts until you're not sure what's real anymore. That's why people often joke about seeing monsters in the shadows. But here, in this room, the shadows are alive, and they know exactly where to strike. Despite the overwhelming weight of despair, you force yourself to keep writing. The glowing lines on the page grow brighter, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. With each stroke of the shard, the unseen passengers recoil further, their forms dissolving into smoke that dissipates instantly. Even the entity begins to falter, its tendrils shrinking back into itself as if retreating from some unseen force. But the cost is clear. Every word saps your strength, leaving you trembling and breathless. Your hand shakes uncontrollably, the shard slipping slightly as exhaustion sets in. Yet you press on, driven by a desperate need to finish, to complete whatever ritual this journal demands. Finally, the last line falls into place, forming a sigil-like pattern that glows with an otherworldly light. For a brief moment, everything freezes. The unseen passengers mid-motion, the entity dissolving into smoke, the whispers beneath the floorboard silenced. Then, with a deafening crack, the journal snaps shut, sealing itself with an audible click. Silence follows. A heavy, oppressive silence that presses against your eardrums like a physical force. The unseen passengers vanish instantly, their forms dissolving into nothingness. The entity collapses inward, imploding with a final, ear-splitting shriek before disappearing completely. Even the whispers fade, leaving only the soft of the fan overhead. You sit there for a long time, clutching the journal tightly in one hand, while the candle burns low in the other. Funny how endings feel anticlimactic after so much chaos. People often joke about horror stories wrapping up too neatly, or worse, leaving loose threads that haunt readers long after the final page. But here, in this moment, the resolution feels incomplete, because deep down you know the truth. This isn't over. Slowly, the tension begins to ease. The air feels lighter, less oppressive, as if the house itself is exhaling after holding its breath for hours, or maybe days. You glance around the room, taking the damage: shattered furniture, cracked walls, and dust coating every surface like snowfall. Yet despite the destruction, there's a strange sense of calm, as if the worst is past. Morning light filters through the curtains, pale and tentative, casting soft golden hues across the floor. Birds chirp faintly outside, their melodies mingling with the distant hum of traffic. Life goes on, oblivious to the nightmare you've endured. Funny how normalcy returns so quickly, erasing traces of chaos without apology. You set the journal aside carefully, unsure whether it's safe to touch again. Its pages remain closed, sealed tight, as if guarding secrets too dangerous to reveal. Whatever power holds, and whatever connection it forged tonight, isn't gone. It's simply dormant, waiting patiently for the next chapter to unfold. Historians still argue whether objects imbued with supernatural energy retain their power indefinitely or lose potency over time. Either way, you know better than to tempt fate twice. This journal stays hidden, buried somewhere no one will find it, including yourself. As dawn breaks fully, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, you allow yourself a small measure of relief. Exhaustion weighs heavily on your shoulders, dragging you towards sleep despite lingering fears. Maybe tomorrow will bring answers, or maybe it won't. Either way, you've earned a reprieve. So dim the lights, pull the blanket tighter, and let the hum of the fan lull you into rest. Tonight's journey may be over, but the echoes remain, whispering softly in the corners of your mind. Sweet dreams.